We're stoked you're here today. We're stoked that you're watching online. And this is my wife, Ingvild. Let's give it up for Ingvild. Ingvild is a therapist. And to kick off the month, a month that's been dedicated to mental health, we thought we would have a clinical perspective alongside of a theological perspective, which you typically get. So, and we don't even see a difference between those two. We think God made it all. Can I get a witness? And also, I worked out with Andy and Will on Thursday, and hopefully we're going to do it again this Thursday, 1 o'clock. If you want a high-intensity workout, come with us, Balboa Park, 6th and Laurel. Moderate to high. It was high for me. We're excited. I'm going to just jump right in. We're in Mark, and we've been trafficking in Mark, and we're going to continue to do that. And we're talking about the life of Jesus being this kind of beginning of Oasis in your own life. That when God gets his way, you're at peace. Like when God gets his way, good things happen, and it's something the Bible calls shalom. Shalom, the best way you can imagine shalom is like comprehensive rest. Just like, in fact, I heard something really interesting, and I can't remember who I was talking to. It may have been Josh, but we were talking about the name Yahweh. And Israel took out the vowels on purpose because they didn't want his name to be pronounceable. It was a reverential treatment of the name of God. But he was talking about, the person I was talking to was talking about the rabbinical, somebody was reflecting on the name of God without the vowels, and when you say it, it sounds like an inhale and an exhale. Yahweh, Yahweh. And I thought that was so profound. I thought that was so profound because God is the very sustenance of life. That in him we live and move and have our being. And that's Paul quoting a Cretan philosopher. That even the Greeks knew this, that God is this sustaining force, right? So as we get into this, know that that's what God is trying to do in your life. God's not tying up heavy loads. He's not trying to make you more stressed out. He's doing the opposite. And hopefully we'll be able to bring that home. So I'm going to start Mark chapter 3, verses 1 through 6. If you're at home, read along. Another time, Jesus went into the synagogue, and a man with a shriveled hand was there. Some of them were looking for a reason to accuse Jesus, so they watched him closely to see if he would heal him on the Sabbath. Jesus said to the man with the shriveled hand, "Hey, stand up in front of everyone." Jesus is so trying to provoke the religious elite right now. He's like, what, this bothers you? Here, let me do it. Then Jesus asked them, the religious guys, what's lawful on the Sabbath? To do good or to do evil? To save life or kill? But they remained silent. He looked around at them in anger and deeply distressed at their stubborn hearts. And he said to the man, stretch out your hand. He stretched it out, and his hand was completely restored. Then the Pharisees went out and began to plot with the Herodians how they might kill Jesus. This is the turning point. Jesus just healed a dude, and the religious elite are now trying to kill him. Why? There's two things happening here. There's a miss and a reminder. The religious elite are Israel. And to understand what they are missing in this moment, you have to go all the way back to Genesis 12. In Genesis 12, it says this, the Lord said to Abram, this is before Abram had any kids. It's before he had Isaac. It's before the nation of Israel. This is like even pre-covenant, okay? And God says something to Abraham that reflects into this moment profoundly. Let me read it. The Lord said to Abram, go from your country, your people, and your father's household. And Ingvild's going to interrupt me whenever she wants to, just so you guys know that's how it works in our household. So go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, okay? I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And here's the point. Here's the point. All peoples on earth will be blessed through you. So it's not like God is just kind of pouring into Abraham's cup for Abraham. Right at this point, he's Abram, which means daddy. He becomes Abraham, which means big daddy. And it's not like God is just pouring into Abram's cup so Abram can be blessed. No, Israel was always meant to be this conduit for heaven to hit earth. And in this moment, Jesus is having a conflict with the Israelites, the religious elite, the people he was a part of, the tribe from which he came. And he's completely baffled at their stubborn hearts, that they have forgotten that the Sabbath, the day set apart for God, of course you heal. We get into systems where we forget what is good because we have small g God at the center of our lives. We get into systems where the concept of good escapes us because we do not have true good at the center of our lives. I'm gonna quote somebody. Anselm, he's the guy who came up with the ontological argument for God. And the ontological argument would take a long time to unpack right now, so I'm just going to take a part of it so that you can kind of understand what I'm talking about. But I want to illustrate for you why the religious elite at this point are having a hard time understanding what's good. They literally froze. He's like, should I heal or should I not? Your choice. What do you think? Would God want to do that? Do you remember what God said to Abram? I want to bless all the nations. I want to do a good thing. Why are they so stumped? Here's why. In Anselm's ontological argument, he says this: God is that than which nothing greater can be conceived. God is that than which nothing greater can be conceived. God is the eternal, the Alpha, the Omega, the beginning, the end, the ultimate of things of which can be conceived, okay? When you have that at the center of your life, you have something that is all-encompassing and powerful. Think of it like this. It raises the ceiling of your concept of good. It raises your concept. It directs your ideas of what is truly beautiful, what is truly perfect.
I think it would be a good time to go back to the Sabbath and how that was supposed to be a day of rest and leaning into God. And why don't we have all of us just do the breathing with Yahweh just right now before we move on? Because I think that's what they missed. They missed sitting with God, just being with God, not even asking God to fix the things so they could further their agenda, but to slow down and be changed by sitting with God and knowing the security that comes with. Some of you are surfers and you're in the water, or some of you go hiking and you are in the midst of nature and you realize, wow, I'm so small. And when you feel small, the beauty that happens right there is that your problems become tiny. It's the problem we often face is that we become too big. We become our own gods, and then our problems are massive and fill us with anxiety and striving and grasping. So I think slowing down even right now could be helpful so that we can engage. We're going to talk about left brain, right brain in a little bit. But right now we just engaged your left brain. So let's engage our right brain
Go
too.
for it.
No, I'm going to have you do it because I don't know how to say Yahweh well. The Norwegian accent is coming through.
Okay, well, just close your eyes and do this whenever you're meditating and praying. It's a good practice to be able to allow all sounds to be okay. So whatever happens outside or upstairs or in this room, just let it be okay, and let every sound be a reminder of God's presence and God's grace, God's sustaining love. in this moment. And then as you inhale, just say, Yah. And just go ahead and continue your breathing at a duration that feels comfortable to you. And say this name that can't be spoken. It's spoken through your breathing. Just relax today. Just know that God sees you. God formed you. God's plans for you are for good things, not calamity. We receive your love over us, God. We receive your words of affirmation. That as far as the east is from the west, so far you have removed our brokenness from us. So in that state, and don't lose that, we're going to talk about attachment.
We are here. How do we say his name? Anselm? Anselm also said, God is that than which nothing greater can be conceived. Anselm was using this statement as an ontological argument. Didn't you already say this?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, so why are you telling me to read it?
I thought you were going there.
Oh, okay. We can't see even with glasses, clearly, but we're trying. Okay, so attachment to God. I just wanted to define attachment first because we're throwing it around a lot. And this month we're actually doing a class here, an event where we want to give back to our community by inviting the people in East Village to come. And you guys, are, of course, are also invited. Make sure you get your tickets. They're going to be $10, which is a huge deal. We're going to have an incredible trainer in emotionally focused therapy, which is an attachment type therapy, who's going to come and give a message on how to fight loneliness through attachment. And today we're going to talk about the attachment to God. But what attachment means is that need that we all have to have someone have our back, someone embracing us. Do you have that photo I sent you, or you didn't put it in there? No. That's okay. The koala bear. It was just the cutest picture. I was having my morning coffee and I pulled up a photo on my reel and I sent it to Jay, but it's a koala, and the koalas, I think they sleep, 22 hours a day or something like that? Something insane, right? And the mom is like barely opening her eyes to notice that the baby's still there. And the baby gets to be there for 8 or 9 months, depending on how fast they grow. As long as mom can hold them, the baby stays right there, being wrapped in the mama bear's arms. And that's, I think, one of the best visuals I've seen in a while for how God wants to sit with us. That's why I wanted to pause and breathe, because it's not about what we do for God or how we live our life. It's about how we relate to God and how we allow him to hold us so that we can then go and hold space for others. And attachment is that knowing that God's got you. So there's nothing you need to grasp for. There's nothing you need to strive for. There's nothing you need to control. There's nobody you need to control. Even the people that you really care about that's doing stupid things, you don't need to control them. God's got them. And the God attachment is when you have this good at the center of your life and you're learning to be securely attached to this good being God, then you naturally become healing to others. You naturally hold space. When people sit with you, they know that this is safe, that you don't need anything from them, that they can say anything without judgment. The grace that Maddie was singing about earlier is there, and there's a non-judgmental space where healing can happen. And it's also where identity formation happens. We can't really know who we are until we're sitting with another human, or with God. But C.S. Lewis, do you have that C.S. Lewis quote in here? No. He talks about how when he lost one of his best friends, the saddest thing to him was obviously he was never going to sit and have conversations with his friend, but he also recognized a part of him was never going to be there to give to another person because this friend had brought out a very specific part of him. And that's what I mean. That's why it's so important to be in community, so that all parts of your being activated and come online, because you're connected with lots of different people. And not just connected, but like sitting with and learning about them and about yourself through sitting.
And so that's what the religious elite were missing. They were missing the moment to be there for one another's healing. And they were missing it because they had something that was non-ultimate at the center of their universe. What did they have at the center of their universe? Pulling off religious goods and services, pulling off religious tricks, looking spiritually righteous. That was their good. And when that's your good, it's just limited. So like, let's take some examples. If money is your ultimate good, then good becomes contingent on the bottom line, staying in the black, right? If burning a partner is good for business, then money has spoken. And your idea or concept of what is good has been lost. You see how when you have a small g God at the center of your universe, your concept of good gets lost. That's why you need something than which nothing else could be possibly bigger or more beautiful at the center of your life. If becoming influential and powerful in the eyes of people is your good, then making your entire relational life about networking, influencing, and getting ahead is your good. And congratulations, you'll die alone, because you just commodified everybody. You just turned everybody into a useful stepping stone, and they aren't going to like you after that. Sex, sorry, let's talk about sex. Often sex is transactional. Here's probably how a lot of people think about it out there, and I would say 80% of the population thinks about it like this. I get mine, you get yours. But this is a far cry from good, isn't it? Studies show that that is a far cry from good.
And studies show that men and women prefer emotionally connected sex, that that's the best type of sex. And that's what we're all striving for. But part of part of what happened in the last decades, but especially during the pandemic, was that pornography got out of control. And so what we're seeing right now is that people, even in their young 20s, are having issues that usually was an issue in 50s and 60s, because they aren't able to emotionally connect and they aren't able to have sex with their partner in the way they would like to, because pornography is rewiring their brains. But I don't want to just like paint a bleak picture, because as we'll see a little bit later, rewiring your brain back to healing is also very much possible. And so it's just a matter of getting help and doing the work that needs to happen in order for the brain to heal itself, because it definitely can. That's another line of studies that are coming up constantly, is the brain's ability at any age to heal itself. Even from other addictions like alcohol and drugs, it's amazing how much the brain can heal itself once you pause on whatever you're using to numb.
Yeah, God has made us so resilient. And there's a lot of people who could help you in this room. with this sort of stuff. Ing's a resource. Sally is a resource. Forgive me if I'm forgetting. I'm talking about therapists. But we want to be helpful to you guys in managing some of this stuff. Going back to the religious guys in the room who didn't know what good was, if managing the identity of a righteous person is your ultimate good, then you might just find yourself juxtaposed, and by that I mean like against, positioned against God. That's what's happening here. They were so given to a system with a weak sense of good that they did not know good when they saw it. And so the greatest thing for our mental health as a community is to be able to be there for one another, but we will not know how to be there for one another until we learn to attach to good, to God, the ultimate good. One sign of this missing the mark is the symptom of loneliness. It's going around. We're talking about it on March 25th. Catherine is going to be speaking. It's going to be off the hook. It costs $10, but you can do it. I believe in you. You should come. Everyone should come to this. It's going to be a full house, and
it's going to include food. It's not.
It'll have food.
Yeah.
You'll get a tote.
Yeah.
Tote.
It's the $10 is honestly to make sure that you'll actually be here. It's not because it's May 25th. I think we have a slide. Do we have that slide? The attachment slide?
Yeah, he's been putting it up.
Oh, yes. Okay.
So,
yeah, May 25th at 7 p.m. It's a Thursday night. Eat dinner before you come, but there will be wine and cheese and charcuterie type stuff.
Yeah,
but
don't come with like Ziploc bags,
no.
okay?
It's not Dan providing
It's
food
not Dan
like you're
providing
used
food.
to, okay?
So I wanted to bring up some key findings of a Harvard study on loneliness, and this is very recent. I think this is 2022. In a recent Harvard National Survey of American adults, 36% of respondents reported serious loneliness, feeling lonely frequently, or almost all the time. In the 4 weeks prior to the survey. This included 61% of young people aged 18 to 25 and 51% of mothers with young children. These are staggering statistics. 43% of young adults reported increases in loneliness since the outbreak of the pandemic. I'm going to skip down to 3. Young adults suffer high rates of both loneliness and anxiety and depression. According to a recent CDC survey, 63% of this age group are suffering significant symptoms of anxiety or depression, which is derivative, wouldn't you say, of some of those lacking social connection that you were made for. Like,
or even knowing, like I spoke to some of my, the therapists on staff that work with this age group, and they say they have no idea how to connect anymore, partly because of the pandemic. The other big thing is their technology and their phone in their hand. But so they don't have to develop the same social skills as, decades before.
yeah. So we thought this was crazy that Harvard was writing this because this is basically a beautiful picture of church, but listen to how they summarize those statistics.
And it's also sad that church missed it so absolutely that Harvard is the ones that have to actually figure this out.
Yeah. We need to return to an idea that was central to our founding and is at the heart of many great religious traditions. We have commitments to ourselves, but we also have vital commitments to each other, including to those who are vulnerable. So what's the point? The point is this. Your well-being as a human is my responsibility, not just yours. It's your well-being as a human is not something you were ever made to go at all by yourself. There's this picture of a community at the beginning of Outliers, a Malcolm Gladwell book, and it's this transplant community from Italy, and they live this really tight-knit familial dynamic. And here's what's crazy. The reason why they were brought out in the book Outliers is because their health was an outlier statistic. The people in this small town were so healthy. And they drank, they ate terrible food, they smoked, but because they were so tight-knit, they were living into how they were formed by God to be in close connection with one another. And so the religious elite in this moment, when Jesus asked them, is it good to heal on the Sabbath? Is it good to be empathetic to your brother whose hand is shriveled? Is it good for me to show up to this man who has suffered with this for so long? Is it good? And they're stumped. Can often be you and me. We are inviting you basically into a God attachment that raises the roof of your expectations on how to be there for people and how to allow people to be there for you. And you talked about the space between, and I think you need to comment on that. Like, I don't remember what you said there, but that was awesome.
Well, I was just talking about how when you show up for each other, part of showing up is that you have your own stuff taken care of. Not that you're a perfect human, but that you have tuned into God so that your chaos, your anxiety, all of the stuff that all of us bring into a room unless we deal with it is not in front of you. You're not presenting that. You're there and you are feeling completely held by God so that you can be there for the other. If you feel small and you feel connected to God, you don't need this other person to take care of and sort through all your stuff. They get to just relate to you because you're already held, you're already taken care of by God. And that is not something that happens one time when you give your life to God or one time when you get baptized. It's something that happens moment by moment because there's constantly more stuff coming. And so maybe we do the breaths that we did a few moments ago and tune into God so that we can show up. Showing up, I see that as synonymous with showing up and holding space by not having all your own chaos. Of course, there's people in our life, like our therapists, certain family members, some friends, that are willing to take on all the chaos, and they're never going to go anywhere. But I think the community aspect of it, bigger groups, people that you're just getting to know, they shouldn't have to deal with all our chaos. We should tune into God first so that we can show up and be able to hold space. And compassion is a huge tool to fight anxiety and depression. If we can serve others and show compassion, that is a great way of our own anxiety and depression being lowered.
Yeah. This is a quote from the book God Attachment. And it says this: whether we admit it or not, we all want to belong. We crave to know that if we died today, somebody would care, that something or someone beyond us exists. In fact, empirical evidence is now showing that we may be born with a desire for a relationship with a transcendent other, and that longing begins to reveal itself in children as young as 3 years of age. So the point is this: you were made for a connection with transcendence and a personal connection to that. And in that connection with God, God frees you up to actually be there for others. Now, there's going to be moments where you're dysregulated and you need people to show up for you, and you're going to be ugly and messed up and jacked up and stuff. And you will have, if you build relationships with people that are trusting and founded in that agape love that Jesus was installing on planet Earth, that self-giving love, think about it. Like, just take a moment and reflect on okay, who can I go to when I'm a mess? Because often that person becomes the picture of God in your life. Now, that's cool. But I will say that every person who wants to be connected to God and follow God and be what we call discipled by God is going to be discipled or directed or trained in a certain direction, and that direction is the reliance on God that Ing was talking about. And so you see the saints like St. Teresa of Avila, we talk about her all the time, where she would sit in the presence of God and she would, just through meditation and prayer, experience ecstasy in the presence of God. Like a love so tangible and so palpable and so powerful that it actually shifted her internal realities so that she could look up from her navel. Okay, so that's a vision for what God's calling you into. But often it starts with learning to trust God through faces, people who are faithful to you, people who will show up to you when you're a sobbing mess and will embrace you with that love of God, that agape love nonetheless. You want to go there? Okay, we're going to probably close with this. Go ahead.
Okay, we're going to, do we have that quote? Is this quote up there?
The right brain quote?
Yeah.
Yeah, the right brain quote.
So we're just going to read this quote for you.
By the way, let me give a shout out to Sally.
This
Sally
is
is the one
Sally's
who
stuff.
gave us this
so
book.
If you are curious about this, you should talk to Sally. I only know a little bit. She knows a lot.
Yeah.
So this is Jim Wilder and Michael Hendricks. The right brain processes these questions. Who is happy to see me? What do I feel right now? Is there anyone here who understands me? Do I act like myself right now? What do people do in this situation? The answers to these questions drive our character development. Our right brain depends on relational input to form our character. So, do we have this? Yeah. Yes, there we go. So, not to be critical of church, but I'm going to. I think even the church has spent way too much time over on the left. We love our classes. We love our messages. They should be really, really long. And we love our strategic meetings and all the things. I think we need to, and what we're trying to do here at Commons is getting more over here on the right brain. That's why we do coffee social. We don't do it because we want to stay at church longer. We actually want to know you. We want to make sure that you have gotten to be asked, how are you, by someone who cares at church every single time you go. And if we just come in and we run through an hour service, 100 miles an hour, you might not be asked that. And we want to make sure that we slow down enough that we're more organic than a program.
So what you're seeing there with the arrows is that when you have an experience, that experience starts in the back of your right lobe. Yeah, I love that word. Lisa lobe. Starts in the back right, moves to the front right, moves to the front left, and then moves to the back left. And the point is that God has made the right side really, really robust, like fast. It's processing so much faster than the left side. That means there's a lot getting done on the right side, and look what's getting done on the right side. Identity, group identity, emotional attunement to others, assessment of surroundings, relational attachments. Like, what is God really wanting to get done? You're designed to be like formed, and the brunt of the work God's going to do in your life is going to be at an emotional, identity, relational level.
Yeah. Compassion and empathy is on the right side. And I think that's how humans know they're loved. If someone is sitting with them and they're able to experience that someone else feels what it's like in their shoes, that's when you feel fully seen and heard. And compassion, reaching out to someone who needs it with exactly what they need in that moment, that's another way where we can really feel like, okay, not only does this human see me, I feel seen by God because somebody got this human to show up right when they did for me.
There's been moments of desperation in our life together where we felt all alone, and all we got was a simple text from somebody, and it made us feel not alone. And we believe that what God is doing at its very simplest form is you guys being connected to God and sensitive to God's leadings, and as you're loved by God and then follow God's leadings, He's going to do a mighty work among us. Like, it's that simple. But you have to meet good, capital G, which the religious elites were having a hard time doing. And that means you're going to have to let go of systems that maybe promise good but fall short. They're good insofar as they go.